What if I told you there's a plant that produces 75 tubers from a single root? A plant you plant once and it feeds you for decades. A plant that survives droughts that kill everything else around it. A plant that stores for years without refrigeration, contains complete protein, healthy fats, and doesn't spike your blood sugar. You'd think humanity would worship it, right? Protect it, celebrate it. Instead, we've classified it as one of the worst invasive pests on planet Earth. We've engineered herbicides specifically to kill it. We've published government bulletins calling it a menace, and chemical companies have made millions teaching farmers to eradicate it from existence. This is the story of Chufa, the superfood they turned into a weed. Let me take you back 5,000 years, to ancient Egypt, to the tombs of the pharaohs. When archaeologists opened these sacred burial chambers, they found something unexpected alongside the gold and jewels. Small, wrinkled tubers, perfectly preserved, waiting in the darkness for millennia. These weren't just any tubers. They were Chufa, also known as tiger nuts, earth almonds, or by its scientific name, Cyperus esculentus. The ancient Egyptians considered them so valuable, they placed them in tombs to nourish souls in the afterlife. But Egypt wasn't alone. In Spain, they've been making a drink called horchata de Chufa for over 1,000 years. In West Africa, it's been a staple crop for centuries. Indigenous peoples across multiple continents knew its secret. So what happened? How did a food so revered by ancient civilizations become public enemy number one in modern agriculture? To understand why this plant became a target, you first need to understand what makes it extraordinary. Chufa is a perennial sedge. It looks like grass, but underground it's building an empire. From a single plant, it produces an extensive network of tubers, sometimes up to 75 or more in a single growing season. Here's what makes it remarkable. Survival mechanism. Chufa can lie dormant in the soil for up to 10 years. It survives floods, droughts, and temperature extremes that would kill conventional crops. When conditions are right, it springs back to life. Nutritional powerhouse. Each tuber contains resistant starch, a prebiotic fiber that feeds your gut bacteria and doesn't spike blood sugar like regular carbohydrates. It has healthy monounsaturated fats, similar to olive oil. Complete proteins with all essential amino acids, high levels of vitamin E, minerals like magnesium, potassium, and phosphorus. Zero maintenance. You plant it once. It regenerates year after year. No irrigation required in most climates. No fertilizers, no pesticides. It just grows. Indefinite storage. Unlike potatoes or other tubers that rot, Chufa can be stored for years at room temperature without spoiling. Ancient civilizations used it as emergency food during famines. In a world facing climate change, water scarcity, and food insecurity, this plant is practically a miracle. So when did things change? When did this ancient superfood become agriculture's most wanted? The transformation happened in the 20th century, with the rise of industrial monoculture farming. Modern agriculture is built on control. Farmers plant single crops in massive fields: corn, soybeans, cotton, wheat. These crops are selected for uniformity. They grow in neat rows. They respond predictably to fertilizers and herbicides. They can be harvested by machines on precise schedules. Chufa doesn't play by these rules. When Chufa appears in a cotton field or a soybean field, it competes aggressively for resources. Its extensive root system spreads underground, creating new plants faster than farmers can remove them. Its tubers lie dormant in the soil, waiting years if necessary to resurface. For a farmer trying to grow a single profitable crop, Chufa is a nightmare. It reduces yields, it tangles in harvesting equipment, and it's almost impossible to eliminate completely. But here's the critical question no one was asking. What if we're growing the wrong crop? In the 1960s and 70s, as industrial agriculture expanded, agricultural departments around the world began publishing bulletins about Chufa. The language was aggressive: noxious weed, invasive pest, economic threat. Chemical companies saw an opportunity. They developed specialized herbicides targeting sedge plants like Chufa, products with names like sedgehammer, basagran, and halosulfuron. They marketed them specifically to farmers battling this invasive menace. The agricultural extension services, funded partly by these same chemical companies, taught farmers that Chufa must be eliminated at all costs. Spray early, spray often. Prevent it from establishing. In some regions, it became illegal to cultivate Chufa intentionally, not because it was toxic or dangerous, but because it was classified as a noxious weed. Growing food became a crime. Let that sink in. A plant that sustained ancient civilizations, that grows without resources, that produces abundant nutrition, deemed illegal to grow. Meanwhile, the herbicide market grew into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Farmers became dependent on chemicals to maintain their monocultures. The cycle was complete. But here's what they don't tell you in those agricultural bulletins. Recent scientific research has rediscovered what ancient peoples knew instinctively. Chufa isn't just nutritious, it's medicinal. Studies show that Chufa helps regulate blood sugar, making it valuable for diabetics. Its resistant starch feeds beneficial gut bacteria, improving digestion and immunity. The high fiber content supports cardiovascular health. Its arginine content supports healthy blood flow. In Spain, horchata de Chufa, a traditional drink made from tiger nuts, is experiencing a renaissance. Health food stores across Europe and North America now sell dried Chufa tubers as a superfood snack. Environmentally, Chufa could be revolutionary. It requires minimal water compared to almonds or other nut crops. It improves soil structure with its root system. It needs no pesticides. It's naturally resistant to most pests, and it sequesters carbon more efficiently than annual crops. In an era of climate change, where we need drought-resistant, low-input crops that regenerate naturally, Chufa checks every box. So why aren't we celebrating it? Why aren't we breeding better varieties and developing cultivation systems? Why aren't we feeding it to the world? The uncomfortable truth is this: Chufa threatens a system. Modern agriculture isn't designed to produce the most nutritious food or the most sustainable crops. It's designed to produce the most profitable commodities that fit within an industrial supply chain. Chufa doesn't need yearly seed purchases. It doesn't need fertilizers. It doesn't need herbicides or pesticides. It doesn't need irrigation systems. Once established, it maintains itself. From a farmer's perspective, that sounds ideal. From a corporation's perspective, that's a disaster. There's no recurring revenue in a plant that regenerates itself, no chemical inputs to sell, no patented seeds to license, no dependency to exploit. Chufa represents food independence, and food independence is the last thing industrial agriculture wants you to have. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is simply economics. Systems protect themselves, and our food system is protected by the classification of self-sufficient crops as weeds. The story of Chufa is the story of how we've been conditioned to see abundance as a threat. Around the world, small farmers and permaculture enthusiasts are quietly reclaiming this plant. In home gardens and food forests, Chufa is making a comeback, not as a monoculture cash crop, but as what it was always meant to be, a reliable, regenerating source of nutrition. You can't buy Chufa at most grocery stores, but you can buy tubers online and plant them yourself. In many regions, it's still perfectly legal to grow in your garden. The question isn't whether Chufa can feed us. The question is whether we'll allow it to. Because the forgotten superfood was never really forgotten. It was deliberately buried, and now you know why. Let that sink in. A plant that sustained ancient civilizations, that grows without resources, that produces abundant nutrition, deemed illegal to grow. Meanwhile, the herbicide market grew into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Farmers became dependent on chemicals to maintain their monocultures. The cycle was complete. The plant they called a pest might just be the food of our future if we're brave enough to let it grow. Picture this. It's 2030. Climate change has intensified. Droughts sweep across continents. Water has become more precious than oil. Traditional crops are failing. Famine threatens millions. And somewhere, in a forgotten corner of a field that hasn't been sprayed in years, Chufa is thriving. While billion-dollar agricultural corporations scramble to engineer drought-resistant GMO crops, while governments pour money into vertical farms and hydroponics, while scientists desperately search for solutions, the answer has been buried in the soil beneath our feet for 5,000 years. We didn't lose Chufa because it failed us. We abandoned it because it wouldn't make anyone rich, because it refused to be controlled, because it had the audacity to grow without permission. There's a reason ancient peoples put these tubers in their tombs. They understood something we've forgotten. True wealth isn't measured in quarterly profits. It's measured in resilience, in sovereignty, in the ability to feed yourself when systems collapse. Every time you spray herbicide on Chufa, you're not killing a weed. You're killing a lifeline. You're destroying the very thing that could save us when everything else fails. The forgotten superfood is calling to us from beneath the poison. It survived our chemicals, our bulldozers, our classification as a pest. It's waited patiently while we chased profits and monocultures and corporate control. And now, as our food system teeters on the edge of crisis, Chufa offers us a choice. Continue fighting the plants that want to feed us, or finally recognize that nature designed something far better than anything we could engineer. The plant they turned into a weed is offering us redemption. The question is, are we humble enough to accept it? Because when the dust settles and the chemicals fade and the corporations crumble, Chufa will still be there, waiting, regenerating, ready to feed whoever has the wisdom to stop poisoning their salvation. The forgotten superfood remembers us, even if we forgot it.